This video is for those who participated in the Teacher Excellence Program and are interested in understanding how the SLOs that you use for your course and the assessments derived from measuring those course SLOs are meaningful to you. And so this is a presentation that I gave on 9/12/12. And it's basically based upon the effective teacher characteristic that we gathered about in 2011 or at the end of 2000 or beginning of 2012, where we asked teachers who had high success rates what were some of the effective strategies they used. And this one that most of them had was that they were very clear about the criteria for their assessments, and they gave those criteria to the students. And this presentation is to actually look at whether or not your assessment is even measuring what you want it to measure. So without having a meaningful assessment that measures that SLO that we want, then it would not represent something that we could give to the students. So in this workshop, it was really important that people were able to identify the action verb and then be able to connect that action verb to one of the course assessments, evaluate how well those course assessments measure the SLO, should be able to revise them, and then recognize how it fits into the overall assessment process at Leeward. In this workshop, I needed to understand where people were coming back, their level of understanding with the assessment, so we did this game in which we circled up and I was able to find out what they knew. So the first thing when we got back together as a group was, can you identify what an action verb is? And so these are the action or the SLOs from my course, Education Foundations. And so there are 6 SLOs, and we went through and tried to identify which one. And it's really easy with an action verb, because if you just think about what you want a student to do, it's the thing that you can observe. So in number 1, when we asked students to demonstrate the professional disposition of teachers, demonstrate is the action verb, and so that's the thing we want to measure. So if you look at number 2, it's develop. Number 3, there's 2 actions where the students are going to plan and prepare for opportunities to grow professionally. Number 4 is examine. Number 5 is plan and use, and 6 is create and analyze. And this is going to guide us in trying to create meaningful assessments. So to help map the action verb to the course assessments, I asked everyone to list their student learning outcome and then find a course assessment which will actually measure the SLO. And so when you were demonstrating professionalism, the preparation of the assignment was one of the things that I used to measure, which is 100 points, to see if they could be professional. And when you click on that, there's a list of criteria of what I am saying is involved in the preparation of assignments. So it lists it so that the students can see, and that gives clear criteria of how I'm going to measure that. Same with their punctuality and participation. And if I do this for each student learning outcome, I get a course assessment, and course assessments can obviously be more than one. We want a multiple variety of assessments to get evidence from different places, and so I want them to develop a philosophy of education, and so the autobiographical sketch and the educational philosophy are ways of which I'll measure that. And so I go all the way down, and what I'm basically doing is getting a one-to-one map of how to measure each of those SLOs. However, we sometimes use one assessment for multiple action verbs. So I might have an exam which will measure SLO 1, 3, and 4. And all we need to do to make that okay is we have to distinguish which questions are measuring which one. And then it tells us how many points. And that way you keep the one-to-one mapping. If you don't do that, we'll call this a shotgun assessment, where the exam just measures something and we think we're going to hit the target, but we're not sure. So we would love it if you could map your course using this handout or this worksheet, in which you'll be assured that your assessment is actually trying to measure your student learning outcome. When we map it, we want to make sure that the course assessment really represents what we want the students to do. So the way we do this is we look at the actual word, action verb, and then say which one actually provides the most evidence that kids are doing this. So would a multiple choice exam allow people to demonstrate something, what they do? Like if we want somebody to be professional, would I give them a multiple choice exam? Would I give them an essay question? Would I give them a project or portfolio, or would I look at them to see if they could do it? And when you demonstrate something, we're talking about showing or doing something, and out of these 5, probably formal observation would be the most appropriate. So we want to make sure that we are matching those together in the best way and gathering the most evidence. So if I look through what each of those assessments do, we look and see whether or not we have an open type word, action verb, or a closed one. So demonstrate is an open thing. There can be lots of answers. But multiple choice exams are good for closed type action verbs. Essay questions are for open. Projects are for open. Portfolios for open. Again, that can mean a lot of different answers. And formal observation depends on what you're looking for. So if we have an open response, we need a rubric to help organize the criteria for that open response. So I asked everybody in the course to rate their course assessments of how much evidence they give. So if we go through mine real quick, demonstrating by seeing how they actually turn their assignments in on time is an okay evidence. Seeing how many times they attend class, or if they're tardy, or if they participate, is a little bit higher because they're demonstrating that professionalism. So if I go down, I will look and see that most of if all, my assessments do gather good evidence that they can do these action verbs. If we look at the multiple choice exam as an example, we can see that the multiple choice exam is not a great measurement to show demonstration because you're only bubbling in a number. The essay exam for plan and prepare is a lot better because you can demonstrate that you're planning, preparing. And examining is not a very good one for multiple choice questions because it's closed, true, false, excuse me, because it's closed. And when we examine something, it's got to be a very open, lengthy answer with multiple different possibilities. So to change that, or the way we evaluate is we say, is anything below 5, we probably need to get better evidence for the action verb. And we can do that by either changing the action verb itself, by going with a lower student outcome that matches multiple choice, and that will help raise this to 8, which now is aligned better, or change the assessment, which would be a formal observation, which would change that to a higher validity, is what we call an assessment. So if you have these aligned properly and they're gathering good evidence, then you know what you're giving a grade in class or a score is actually measuring the learning. If it doesn't align, then there's a major problem where you think that score actually represents it, and it probably doesn't. What do we do with all this? Well, so what? We gather points from the scores, and we see which one actually assesses learning. And so we can see if things are higher or lower, and we can look at ones that score improving. And I have a mistake here, but the idea is the same, is that we look at the old scores and new scores, and then we come up with an action plan to say how we're going to make these better. So if I think that they need to develop their philosophy better, maybe I need better instructions with clearer models. Maybe planning, preparing, maybe I need to get them to the library better to get better research strategies. Planning use, maybe I need some more practice with them presenting their lessons so they can get better at it. And so I have done this in my own teaching as part of my contract renewal and tenure document, where I have taken my SLOs, my action plans, and see how I've improved or not improved over the last years. Let me back that up. And so I can look and say, oh, I've done this interaction, I've got better. And then I can also coordinate this with the student success rate. Notice that I have challenges with my student success rate. 56% and a couple of years ago I've been able to raise it to 84. Recently that's dropped back down a little bit. So I am constantly trying to see how I can improve my teaching. And that's what this whole purpose of this assessment is, trying to improve your scores. So Leeward takes this interaction, this action plan that you use, and these scores you have by trying to see what you're doing with the assessment. Now, we didn't have time to play the game, but I'm going to jump down to the final slide here so we can see what the idea of the whole assessment process is. So when you gather your scores and you say, I'm going to analyze or assess SLO number 1 or 2, and I get my scores, this is called the assessment process, and it takes place in phase 1A, 1B, and phase 2. And then that is supposed to give you some idea of what you need to improve your course, or any monies or training that you need. Maybe, for example, I need iPads for everyone so they can do better research. So in that way, that'll float up to the annual program review process, in which you'll be looking at whether your program learning outcomes are being met, and then that'll generate a program budget. That floats up to the larger strategic plan of Leeward, where they'll have a college budget for a strategic plan. Now, if you need iPads and that is a priority in strategic plans, then that will be listed higher in the actual strategic plan listing, priority list. And then that floats up to the entire UHCC strategic plan. And then finally, based on that plan and that listing of budget, the state government will say, yes, we'll fund this, versus no, won't fund that. So it's a long ways for yours to travel up there. But the idea is that if you have a need and you show that learning can be improved from that need, then your ideas and your budget or your training will be hopefully kept within that college budget as a priority. And that's it. That's how the whole thing works. So feel free to ever ask me questions or to check in with your assessment rep to get more information. Thanks.